Welcome in to the Rockies Insider. I am your host, Patrick Lyons, to bring you the 2024 World Series preview. The who, what, where, when, and why. Not why you should watch this. You should, because you're not just a baseball fan. You're a sports fan. You're a fan of real life drama, and it doesn't get any more dramatic the New York Yankees versus the Los Angeles Dodgers, two evil empires, if that's how you want to view them. East Coast versus West Coast. Judge, Soto, Stanton against Freeman, Betts, and oh yeah, Shohei Ohtani, the sport's biggest and brightest superstar. I don't know how you can't get excited for this and can't feel good that the sport's best and brightest players and the two most notable teams on this planet Earth that play baseball are going against one another. This is a great thing for the game that we love. And if you can't enjoy that, I'm very sorry, but you might want to check yourself out. You might want to talk with somebody about why you can't be happy for what really could be the greatest World Series in our lifetime. Now that's a lot of hope and hype being put on this World Series because really you could have two so-so teams. By that I just mean maybe smaller market, maybe lacking certain superstars, and the games are compelling because that's really what it's going to be about. But at the end of the day, if we can get at least 6 games, 7, come on. We could be looking at one of the greatest World Series of all times. And certainly the history books should dictate it that way, especially with all of the superstars that are in this game. Here's where I want to start. How did the Dodgers and Yankees get here? Well, the Dodgers and Yankees, they were both favorites in their league. Dodgers, favorite to win the World Series. Atlanta was actually right behind them as a slightly more favorite than the Yankees, who were the favorites in the American League. But Dodgers get the number 1 seed in the National League. They barely get past the Padres. They're down 2-1, and then their pitchers go out and keep the Padres off the board. Scoreless in Game 4 in San Diego, scoreless in Game 5 in LA, and the Dodgers move on. I thought the Padres were going to get it done. Every time I put my money on the Padres, figuratively, they let me down, and I say I'm never going to do it again, and then I do it again. They keep getting there. But the Dodgers do that, and I'm not going to say they easily dispatched the Mets because it did go 6 games, but in the 4 games that the Dodgers won, they were really head and shoulders above the Mets. And the games that they lost were actually close. So it wasn't totally easy because it did have to go 6 games, but that's how the Dodgers ended up getting to the 2024 Fall Classic. The Yankees, also a number 1 seed in the American League, best record in the junior circuit. They snuck by the Royals in 4 games, only scored 2 more runs than Kansas City. Those were all incredibly close games. They downed Cleveland in 5 games, also somewhat of a close series. Not 2 runs more as a run differential, but it was a close series. It was very much back and forth. It was just that it was fourth for the Yankees a lot more so. Drew Goodman dropped a podcast today on the Drew Goodman podcast talking with Brian Anderson, who called that American League Championship Series. Make sure you listen to that. They talk a lot in depth about how good the Guardians were and the Yankees and the battle that they had. I highly recommend you listening to that podcast. But that's how we got here. How did the teams get here? Now, not a ton of guys were actually drafted. So we're looking at 52 players. How did those 52 players, which we still don't actually know the identity of all the players. Nestor Cortez is a guy that may make the World Series roster. He's been shut down since September 18th with a left elbow flexor strain. And frankly, Cortez doesn't care what happens next. He's not worried about getting Tommy John surgery because he could win a World Series. It's not hey, I got to put it out of my mind and I got to pitch. He's just basically, look, I got an opportunity to make an impact and to win a ring. And not, win a ring like, I played 3 games with the team over the course of the year. And so, yeah, I'm going to get one. No, this means a lot to Nestor Cortes. So he's going to pitch, and if he ends up getting hurt and that derails his career somewhat, so be it. You play the game to win a championship, to win a ring, to be the best at your sport. And being the best at your sport could mean individually, statistically, but for so many more players, it's about doing it as a team. It is a team sport, and Nestor Cortes wants to earn that ring. I think Miguel Rojas, press day in Los Angeles on Thursday, he might be on that World Series roster. So we don't know the entire breakdown of all the guys. I think this was an article from Baseball America detailing where the players came from. I think they focused on players that were on the ALCS and NLCS roster. Of the 52 between these two clubs, 11 were drafted, 5 were international signings. So basically 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid signed at the Dominican Republic, whatever it may be. 16 of them were free agents. Keep in mind, this does include minor league signings. So the Yankees, their 3 relievers, Tim Hill and Tim Meza, were both minor league signings. And Luke Weaver got a major league deal, but certainly not an impact player. So a lesser signing. Dodgers have Ryan Brazier. Max Muncy at one point was a minor league signing. And then Evan Phillips and Brent Honeywell in their bullpen. The Dodgers picked them up off of waivers. So when you're looking at free agents, they're not all superstars. And no, Aaron Judge, despite reaching free agency, he was drafted by the Yankees. Yeah, he signed a deal out of free agency, but he's a homegrown guy. He's a homegrown guy for the Yankees. And then 20 trades. So the way that these teams acquired players more than any other method was through trades. Yes, trades. Now, how do you pull that off? Well, for the teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees, they pull it off by drafting and developing really well. And they pull that off by not being afraid of giving up a really good talent in order to get better talent. If you're able to evaluate talent well, and you're able to coach up at the major league level or acquire guys in the minors and help them improve, you can make a lot of trades. You can get really creative. You can get really flexible. You can get really aggressive, which both these teams did, of course, at the trade deadline. They usually do. That's because they draft and develop well. That's not their only methodology of being good. It's one of many. And despite it only being a cog in the wheel, that cog is better than many other teams that are simply draft and develop. If you're only going to have one method of acquiring players, you better be great at it. And for the Yankees and Dodgers, they've got many methods of acquiring players. It just so happens that they're pretty darn good at all of them. That's the investment that they make behind the scenes. Now, these two teams, they actually met earlier this year. We're going to be saying that every year, right? We've got interleague play. Every team plays every team. Gotta love that. Dodgers and Yankees played a weekend series June 7th through 9th at Yankee Stadium. Dodgers took 2 of 3. Game 1, they won in 11 innings, 2-1. Game 2, blew out the Yanks, 11-3. And the Yankees finally got one, 6-4 on the Sunday getaway day. There was no Juan Soto in that game. Juan Soto played 157 games this year. He missed 5. 3 of them were against the Dodgers. He did have left forearm inflammation. Were the Yankees playing a little bit of chess at that time? No, not necessarily. He did have left forearm inflammation, but teams like the Dodgers and Yankees, they do have a way of finding different ways to sit guys in different series so that they have more of an impact later on. You also didn't have any of the trade deadline acquisitions. The Dodgers had yet to acquire Jack Flaherty, Tommy Edman, Michael Kopech, Kevin Kiermaier. They were not in that series in June. Yankees had not yet acquired Jazz Chisholm Jr., Mark Leiter Jr., and Jake Cousins. 2 juniors and a cousin. Jake Cousins not related to anybody because he's not a junior, except he is. He's actually cousins with Kirk Cousins. Can't make this up. Yoshinobu Yamamoto in the first game of that series on Friday night. on June 7th. He went 7 scoreless, allowed 2 hits, struck out 7. That's going to bode well when he gets the ball, I believe, in game 2. Game 1's going to be Garrett Cole versus Jack Flaherty. 2 Southern California boys facing off against one another at Dodger Stadium. Judge homered twice in game 2. Once off Ryan Yarbrough, once off Gavin Stone. He homered in game 3 as well of Yohan Ramirez. Who else played a factor in the series? 2 guys we're not going to see at all in the postseason. Cody Poteet. He started game 1. Was decent. And Tyler Glasnow, he gave the Dodgers some length. 6 innings pitched, gave up 5 runs. He started on that Sunday game. Neither of those guys will be performing in the World Series. But this World Series has the makings of a modern classic. It has the makings of everything. I think 2016 probably was the last major World Series that gripped all of America, gripped the entire baseball-loving world. Cleveland versus the Chicago Cubs, who are trying to win their first World Series in over 100 years, 108 years. 1908 was the last time the Cubs had won the World Series. They're trying to get that done in 2016. And so that was a story, I think, for a lot of people to watch the game. The outsiders, if you will, the non-baseball fans. I was listening to someone today discuss that, the Super Bowl is really an event for fans that aren't NFL fans. It's an event for people who don't watch every single Sunday. Sure, football fans are watching, obviously, but if you're not a football fan, you tune into the Super Bowl. They've made it this spectacle. Now, I know Major League Baseball would love for the World Series to be that. After the 2020 World Series, which was in Texas entirely, in Arlington, at Globe Life Field, there was a little discussion, hey, could you have an alternate site World Series? Maybe. I think we're a long way from that happening, especially 4 years out from that World Series. I think there could be some credence to that. I know it sounds crazy. As a guy who loves the history of the game and considers himself a little bit more old school than new school, you have to evolve. You have to evolve. So do we get to one of those kind of World Series? Maybe. But right now, we don't have to worry about that because we have the best players in the sport. The most notable names are going head to head. So while this is going to pale in comparison to Super Bowl numbers when it comes to the ratings, it could be the most viewed World Series since 2016, which is really saying something because we know a lot of people have cut the cords and people are all over the place. They can't sit still. They can't watch one thing for potentially 7 out of 9 days. So the ratings are going to be good. Has that potential for a modern classic. We've got 5 former MVPs playing in this World Series. That's never happened before. And that doesn't even count Clayton Kershaw. So there's going to be 6 in the building. 5 former MVPs. Previous high was 4 at the time of that World Series. We might go back and say, man, there's actually a lot of MVPs in that World Series. Juan Soto is inevitably going to win one. But Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, MV3 for the Dodgers, and then Judge and Stanton. Don't forget Stanton, before he joined the Yankees, did win one in the National League with the Marlins. This is going to be the first World Series between 2 players who've each hit 50 home runs in the regular season. First time ever that's happened. That's good for the sport. First time since 1956 that you've got the league leaders in home runs facing off against each other. And only the 6th time ever. When that did happen in 56, we had Dodgers and Yankees. We had Duke Snider and Mickey Mantle. Think about that. That's another major piece to this for those folks that are naysayers. And if you are, I feel bad for you because you're really missing out. Those folks that are really upset about this year's World Series, you could be upset, but you're going to watch. Don't say you're not going to watch. In fact, maybe you shouldn't really be upset. Because again, I'm not done talking about the history yet. I could go on for an hour. I'm not. But the history is amazing to look at these rosters and be upset that they're facing against one another and these two teams are playing each other. That's like going back and saying, man, why did it have to be Mickey Mantle against Jackie Robinson? Why did it have to be Lou Gehrig against fill in the blank? You're upset about that? That upsets about you retroactively in the past? Of course not. Of course not. Hall of Famers against Hall of Famers is a great thing for this game. The first time we ever had two home run leaders face off against each other was 1921, and I bring that up because fans of AT&T Sportsnet who remember back in the day, it was Babe Ruth in 1921, and then in the National League, who led the league in home runs? George Kelly, a.k.a. High Pockets Kelly. They loved that reference back in the day. Of those 8 players who featured in the 5 matchups before this year that led the league in home runs, all 8 are Hall of Famers. This is going to be the first series in postseason history to have the top 3 qualified players and WRC plus from that season. Soto, Judge, and Ohtani. What else have we got? We got Ohtani and Judge. Double MVP? Maybe. Win the MVP in the regular season and then MVP in the World Series? That hasn't happened since 1980 with Mike Schmidt. Willie Stargell did that. Reggie Jackson in 73, Frank Robinson in 66, Sandy Koufax in 1963. You'd have to even go back to 2010 to find a player who won that league's MVP during the regular season and then won the championship series MVP. That was Josh Hamilton with Texas. Jason Stark of The Athletic is basically saying Ohtani versus Judge right now is the baseball equivalent to Magic versus Bird, Magic Johnson versus Larry Bird, Lakers versus Celtics. This is an all-timer. Could this be the most future Hall of Famers playing in a single World Series? The record is 13 from the 1933 World Series, Yankees-Cubs. I just wrote about that. Well, not about that exactly, but I just wrote about over on Just Baseball, how many possible Hall of Famers could we be seeing in this year's World Series? Now, the last World Series with 7 or more, I think there could be 7 in this year's World Series. Last year was 7 or more, was 96. Glavine, Chipper Jones, Greg Maddux, Fred McGriff, John Smoltz, Atlanta doing a lot of lifting there. Wade Boggs, Derek Jeter, Tim Raines, and Mariano Rivera. There was 9 that year. So I've got 6 right now that are a lock. You can go over and check that out. Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, and Garrett Cole. You can include Clayton Kershaw, of course, on that list. That gets you to 6. That gets you to 7. Kershaw's not going to play in this year's World Series. He's having an issue with his toe, his big toe on his left foot. But nevertheless, 7 Hall of Famers we're going to see on camera during this year's World Series. Read the article if you're like, Giancarlo Stanton, really? Yeah, he will eventually get in. These are not all going to be first ballot Hall of Famers. Juan Soto's got a lot of work to do. Got to play in the majors for at least 10 years in order to get into the Hall of Fame. Soto's not there, so technically speaking, he's not even eligible if he were to decide to retire right now. Nevertheless, Anthony Rizzo, I think he's close. And of course, we still don't know about Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Anthony Volpe, Walker Buehler, as well as a few others. Check that out over at justbaseball.com. Who's better in this series? Here's the who. Is incredibly well matched. I think the edge goes to the Yankees in terms of the rotation. I think their guys might be able to go a little bit deeper, especially when you consider the Dodgers may have to employ a bullpen game. So they are 1 starter short right now. The bullpen, I think it does favor the Dodgers, but if you are using your bullpen that much, that means the opposing team, that means the Yankees are going to be seeing those players that much more and are going to get that much more familiar with those players. We talk about 3rd time through the order for starting pitchers. Well, if you're going to see a relief pitcher 2, maybe even 3 times over the course of a series, that then is going to favor the Yankees. The depth of the Dodgers lineup is a little bit better. I think the defense is better for LA. Dodgers have home field advantage. I think it's going to be Dodgers in 6. I hope it's 7. Not Dodgers in 7. I just hope we get 7. I don't really care who wins this World Series. Technically, I'm not allowed to. But nevertheless, I just want to see some good baseball. And we're going to see that. We're going to see that. This is going to be incredible. I can't wait for Friday night. The real winner of this year's World Series, I think we can all agree, Taylor Trammell, who is going to win a ring regardless of who wins. He played for both teams this year. He played for the Dodgers in 5 games and the Yankees in 5 games. He had 6 at-bats with the Dodgers, went 0 for 6. He had 2 plate appearances with the Yankees. He walked once, and he got a hit in his other at-bat. So he has a perfect 1,000 batting average with the Yankees. He's going to win a World Series regardless. Is he going to feel great about it? He's going to feel good about it. But he's still going to want to win one where he's a much more of a contributing member to the team. Not a knock on him, but again, another great article by The Athletic discussed Jalen Beeks, talking about how he won a World Series with Boston, and he felt like, I didn't help them out very much during the year. In fact, I hurt them. I cost them a couple games. Thought that was interesting. Another winner, anyone named Will Smith, 5th year in a row. Will Smith is in the World Series. 2020, it was this Will Smith from the Dodgers. 21 through 23, that left-handed reliever, Will Smith. And now we're back to the catcher, Will Smith, in 2024. Rockies fans, who are you going to root for? What players can you pull for? Well, for the Yankees, DJ LeMahieu's not going to be making the World Series roster. You'll see him in the dugout. Tommy Kahnle, you will see. So if you go back that far, props. If you remember him, if you remember even rooting for him, yeah, he'll be there. Dodgers don't have any former Rockies. Besides, you can't root for the Rockies, right? I just put something out on social media at Patrick D. Lyons, at Patrick D. Lyons MLB. I got sent a map, geotagging, different states and who's the most popular according to social media on X. And apparently Colorado is rooting for the Dodgers. I don't get it. Wyoming, New Mexico, rooting for the Dodgers. Not Montana. Montana's rooting for the Yankees for some reason. Again, take it with a grain of salt. But it's interesting. Some other little storylines to keep an eye on. I get emails all day long on random things. One has a bunch of prop bets. 9 runs is the over-under. I would probably take the over on that. There's going to be a team that scores. When you put the number at 9, that changes the number. That changes the math a little bit. Now you got to score 10. I got to think someone's going to score 10 or more in this series. One team will score 10 or more. Is there going to be a 450-foot homer? Shoot, you got 3 of the strongest dudes, 4 of the strongest dudes in Stanton, Ohtani, Judge. Soto's got some pop, we know. Who's going to be seen at the game? Sandy Koufax, Reggie Jackson. I think we do see Sandy Koufax, although he can be a bit of a recluse. Reggie Jackson? No, I don't think you're going to see Reggie Jackson. Reggie had a little bit of a falling out with the Yankees. He's been actually working with the Houston Astros for the last couple of years. So, hey, maybe they bring him back. Maybe he comes back into the fold a little bit, but he felt a little unappreciated by the Yankees. So he's been more of a Houston Astros guy lately. Keep this in mind. Juan Soto on Friday. Can he become the second player to ever homer on his birthday? Friday, October 25th is his birthday. Willie Aikens of the Kansas City Royals, the only player to homer in the World Series on his birthday. Will Anthony Rizzo be the first ever player to win a World Series with both the Yankees and the Cubs? And will he join Buster Posey in being the player who catches the final out to end a World Series twice? Now, if Rizzo does it, he will have done it for 2 different teams. Buster Posey did it for one. He did it for the Giants in 2010 and 2012. So Rizzo has an opportunity to make history twice in one play. You also have Freddie Freeman has a chance to be the first to do it with 2 teams. He caught the final out of the 2021 World Series. Austin Barnes caught the final out of the 2020 World Series. So Barnes could join Buster Posey on that list of 1 for catching the final out. Props to Evan Thompson, who I was texting about this topic of final outs, maybe even making the final outs. He's got a really great book on The history of the postseason, a complete history of the Major League Baseball playoffs, Volume 1. Volume 2 actually just released. You can't find that on Amazon yet, but do a search. You'll find it. Get both of those editions. Help him out and help yourself by enjoying this World Series. It's not often that you get these kind of marquee matchups. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be great. And again, if you're listening to this, you're a diehard. You're a hardcore baseball fan, probably a hardcore Rockies fan, but you're a hardcore baseball fan. And you know what? Be an ambassador to everyone else that wants to get in on the action. They showed up a little bit late, but they want to get in on it. I can't not think about last spring, 2023. I had so many people come up to me after the World Baseball Classic, especially after Ohtani struck out Mike Trout to end the World Baseball Classic. You can't make that up. So if we're going to make something up, is Ohtani going to get the final out in the 2024 World Series? Mark the tape. Mark the tape. The guy can do anything. But I had so many people tell me after the 2023 World Baseball Classic, Patrick, I forgot how much I love baseball. And unfortunately, because of the failures of the Colorado Rockies 6 years running here and the frustration that so many Rockies fans have felt almost since this franchise emerged in 93, that because of that, they've kind of turned their back on baseball. And I can't really say I blame those fans. And the World Baseball Classic reminded them, baseball's a great sport. It's just my hometown team isn't very fun to watch. They're frustrating to watch. They're not even fun-strating. They're just frustrating. And now is another opportunity for baseball fans, no matter where you are, no matter what team you root for, to get reminded, baseball is the best. Baseball rules. Baseball isn't boring. Thank you for sticking around, giving me this momentum. At Patrick D. Lyons, at Patrick D. Lyons, MLB, at Rockies_insider. Enjoy it. That's all I got to say is enjoy it, folks. Thanks for sticking around, giving me the momentum. But as I like to say, that momentum is only as good as my next show. So I'll talk to you then.